Welcome to Was It Good, the podcast that reviews movies and TV shows. Today we are talking the first 3 episodes of Disney Plus's newest show, Andor. I'm Ravi, and as always, joined by
Arjuna
and Krishna.
Krishna, do you ever get upset or tired of the fact that you have to add the extra "and" to your name? And Krishna?
No, it makes me feel special.
Oh, okay.
I go last, and people who go last, they're more likely to be remembered, right?
It's also
That's how
like
that works.
it's also like credits of a movie, right? You know, when sometimes you have a cast
Special
of,
guest?
a cast of like actors who aren't necessarily really well known, but you have like one like A-list actor who's only kind of in the movie for like 10-15 minutes, and they do like actor A, B, C, D, and then they do and like that person at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is.
It's
For
like
Krishna.
that was
the
Sean
famous
Bean in the Lord of the Rings movies. He always appeared like at the end, like with Sean Bean.
Yeah,
You know,
the whiz and the ands are
the-
special.
yeah, right.
So tying that, that whole piece back to Andor.
Oh, we're talking about Andor.
Yeah, we are talking about Andor. So I think it's interesting because, obviously the show is following younger Cassian Andor,
But the actor is older.
But the actor is older, right? So Cassian we're first introduced obviously in Rogue One. That Rogue One obviously is a couple of minutes or whatever, or ends a couple of minutes before the start of Episode 4, New Hope. But this series, if I'm correct, starts 5 years roughly before the events of Rogue One.
Yeah.
And a couple of things that are interesting there. There's another show that already came out and wrapped up, and that was also, roughly 5 years before the events of
What's that show called, Ravi?
Star Wars Rebels.
Oh, I've never heard of it. Where can I find this show?
You can find it on Disney XD, a defunct app. No, it's on Disney Plus. I just think that's a fun little tidbit of Star Wars trivia. I don't know. I don't know if that means literally anything.
I mean, good. There's another Star Wars show called
Ahsoka?
Ahsoka.
That's
that
coming
is
out?
Essentially, season 5 of that show. So
Didn't we say that Mandalorian season 2 was the season 5?
So
of
if
Star
you
Wars
go back
Rebels?
and listen to our pods, I had to stick up my butt during those pods, and I was like, I don't like this.
Wow.
There's too much references to the show, which I do think is a valid complaint. That like if you weren't a fan of those Rebel shows and like some of the animated stuff, you're like, what is all this stuff? And like this is the very the franchise building of it all, right?
The Easter eggs.
The Easter eggs of it all. For sure.
And Christian, I don't know, because Christian, for the most part, I think you are the smarter one out of, the 3 of us when it comes to like consuming the extra content around a series. And what I mean by that is, the early reviews of Andor, dropped early. Duh, that's what that means. And because of, we were able to kind of see whenever there's like a new Disney Plus property, somebody's, usually a group of individuals in America likes to complain or find something wrong with this series, whether it be Disney's going very woke, or if it's, too much emphasis on a non-fan favorite character or whatnot. With these first 3 episodes, the major complaint that we've seen so far is that there's not enough Easter eggs in the episodes to make it feel like Star Wars, to make you feel connected to the Star Wars universe. Which, I'll say right off the bat, I really enjoyed that. I like the fact that when you watch the first episode, you end it and you're like, was that Star Wars or was that some weird Blade Runner-esque show, right? Like it did not feel Star Wars. It started in a freaking brothel, for crying out loud. Like, I don't think we've ever seen that in a Star Wars property. So
Close enough.
You know what these first 3 episodes remind me of? They remind me of expanded universe Star Wars novels. Those novels always were more adult than the movies, and so like watching this show, like these first 3 episodes, it could have been taken, I feel like, right out of some of those novels. Those novels dealt with like adult stuff, so. I thought it's interesting that they're pulling it out for this show, and I'm curious to see if this is a direction that it's going, or they just decided this is the tone that works for this character in this show. So it's more of a one-off, you know.
Is Cassian Andor the only main character based on the 3 episodes? So, and what I mean by that is another Star Wars show came out where the main character was the title of the show, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and a lot of people, said yes, Obi is kind of the main character, but at the same time, you still had obviously a cast of other characters that were presented. Based on like these first 3 episodes, are you seeing or picking up on anybody else that could be like a main character?
Oh, for sure. I think like kind of similar to Obi-Wan, right? The events of the show take place around the central character, right? So with Obi-Wan, you had some of these other characters that were either hunting him down, were his allies. They still had some of their own scenes. They still had some of their own storylines that were kind of centered around him. But it was still his show. He was still the main character.
Right.
I think something similar here is kind of happening with Andor, right? You kind of have this very familiar character, from the fans of Rogue One, and he's kind of your entry point into the show, and you're kind of like him learning about this universe of what's kind of out there, right? Andor is, in this show, starts off as this kind of mercenary, right? He's just this guy who's looking for credits. He's not the most, honest guy in the world. But we know his endpoint in Rogue One is he basically ends up becoming one of the heroes of the rebellion, right? He makes the ultimate sacrifice. He dies to get the Death Star plans to where they need to be so the events of the original trilogy can happen. So I think you can kind of surmise from there that there will be characters that kind of introduce you to that world of how does Cassian get from, I'm just kind of selling stuff, we see him kill a dude. Seemingly seems like the first time he's potentially killed.
I don't think so.
Maybe not, but like at least like it comes as a shock to him, right? Similar to in Rogue One, we see him kill someone. He's not that fazed by it. This appearance, he seems a little bit more fazed by it. So even if he's killed before, it's not something he's accustomed to.
Right, but I think he's more fazed by it because he knows
the consequences
of his actions, right? Yeah. He knows that this kill, because it is one of the corporations. I don't know. Anytime they were like, we work for the corporations, then like a weird like 70s sci-fi like tune would pop in my head every time. But yeah, I think he's more fazed by it, not because it's his first, but because it's the consequences. And the other reason is, remember in Rogue One, so I had the opportunity to rewatch Rogue One in theaters, and the movie, there's so much more in that film now that stands out 6 years later. But one thing that's interesting in that movie, Cassie says to Jin in that movie, I've been fighting since I was 6 years old, which this show is doing, I think, a really interesting job with the flashbacks. And, the Star Wars series have not always done well with flashbacks. What was it? Yeah, Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, you did. I wanted him to enter a back-to-tank, so we knew when he was flashbacking.
Well, what's nice though is like the flashbacking. I think with Book of Boba Fett, they kind of abruptly stopped, right, with the flashbacks once he was fully healed and didn't use the back-to-tank. I think this show is going to continue with flashbacks because it's helping us understand who other central characters are, such as like his adopted mother. Definitely learning about his planet. What was his planet called again? Kenari. And whatever happened there.
I think what's interesting with these flashbacks is not only is there a lot of them, they're just kind of seamlessly placed within the show and also cut together from scene to scene where it almost tricks you at some parts where you think, oh, Absolutely. This is, I think it's like at the top of episode 3, potentially, where you see some stuff with his adoptive mother and the robot, and you're like, oh, this is potentially the, is present day, but then you kind of realize, oh, it's actually
past.
It's actually the flashback, and it's the past.
The past always comes back to bite you.
It's true. The truth will set you free.
With let's actually talk about Cassian's background. So Cassian obviously comes from this planet Kenari. Did anyone? Obviously, they're speaking. I'm not entirely sure what they're speaking. I would imagine whatever the native language is to that place. He's with a group of children. It looks like the eldest person there is maybe 15 or 16. You don't see any kind of parents. Did anyone turn subtitles on to see if you could actually understand what they were saying?
I didn't. I wanted the purity of not understanding.
I did.
Yeah, I tried to turn on subtitles, but nothing happened.
Interesting.
Like it was, there were no subtitles, at least when I tried on my device.
So I guess maybe you're not supposed to know what they're saying exactly.
Probably spoilers.
I mean, I don't know if it's spoilers necessarily, but I think you can kind of tell what's going on with the action.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting. So this ship obviously crashes on their planet, and it's a Republic cruiser or a Republic med station or something, I believe. And that points us towards the period of the Clone Wars, which is another, or roughly around the Clone Wars, or maybe just before the Clone Wars. Because how old is Cassian? Anyone know his age when he is kaput?
In his 30s, maybe.
Hard to say.
So no.
Yeah,
because Diego Luna could play a 28-year-old, or he could play a 50-year-old.
41.
yeah.
So
That's called
it's-
acting.
It's really hard to tell how old he's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, age has always been a problem in Star Wars in terms of how people age.
Han Solo.
Han Solo, Ben Kenobi, Bo-Katan, list goes on where it doesn't make a lot of Anakin, Padme. Yeah, come on. Yeah, it's all over the place.
Darth Maul.
Anyway, I mean, so I'm wondering, what else he is, fighting, right? It looks like he is on that planet, then he's obviously taken away, and then there's going to be some kind of accident, right?
Yeah, there's a big info dump, right, when he's
Right.
talking to his buddy to get the ship off of planet. And he's like, Canary. He's like, yeah, there was a big, mining accident, and, the Empire closed it off, and no one can go there. And everyone died.
Which
So it's like,
so then,
huh.
so
and we see in the flashback, though, he's taken away before that event happens.
right.
In episode
Because she
3.
says,
Yeah.
she is it what's her name?
It's Mrs. Dursley from Harry Potter.
Is it really the same actress?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay, wow. I'm not a big pothead, so
Marva? Is that how you say her name? The character's name?
Marva, yeah,
Marva, yeah.
yeah, Marva.
Yeah.
So Marva takes her away, but if it's during when he's a child, there is no Empire at that point.
Well, it depends on his age, right?
Right, that's true. We don't know his age.
They do mention it as the Republic.
Right.
They
so
mention the ship as a Republic
public ship, and that a Republic cruiser
Right.
would come.
So it could be
That's why I think
Yeah.
that's why when she said Republic cruiser, I instantly was like, oh, is it the Clone Wars?
right.
Because they had Republic cruisers. Where
I
they
think
had
it
all the
has to be,
clones.
right?
Well, that's the thing,
Like-
though. Is I guess it doesn't have to be because before there was a Clone Wars,
Before there was a clone army, there was a Republic.
there's the Republic, and there's nothing to say that the Republic didn't have some ships,
or
Yeah, no,
army.
they
they
definitely
had
would,
their own.
actually. Yeah.
but they didn't have an army that to the scale of
Yeah,
the clones.
exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
Interesting. So then we're sort of predicting. So if we're putting it those flashbacks as pre-Clone Wars, then Cassian is a bit older than we might first assume.
Well, think about it, right? It's 17 years between the
3 and 4.
between the end of Revenge of Sith and the beginning of A New Hope, right? We know
Right.
this is 5 years before, so it's been 12 years since the slaughter of the Jedi. Clone Wars went for about 2 years,
Less than 2 years.
right?
Oh,
So
it's
that's
only 2
14.
years?
So it's only
Yeah.
14 years. So it's got to be before the Clone Wars.
Yeah, it has to.
Got
be.
it. Like he's way older than 9.
Well, I
That's
don't
true.
know.
Yeah, he looks like he could be like 10 or 11 or something.
maybe
there. Yeah,
maybe those Canary age differently.
that's true.
Right,
All
but
we know is
like-
they're humanoid.
Yeah. So and he's
Numenorian.
going Rings of Power here. He's a Isildur.
He's Isildur's there.
He will.
He's from before even the first trilogy.
This is before the first age.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Whoa.
Let's bring it all together. And House of the Dragon is in the fourth age, by the way. Just to.
I mean, it all stems from our one reality, so therefore it is all connected.
Okay.
Oh,
This is the
God.
7th iteration of the Matrix.
It's the one ring. The ring is a metaphor for time.
But anyway, the long point I'm trying to make is I'm just kind of curious as to that one line from Rogue One sticks out.
Yeah.
Because in Rogue One, when you saw it 6 years ago, and even when you see it now, it sounds like he's fighting the Empire when he was 6 years old.
But they kind of make it out that the Republic, and I think what the show is doing a good job of, and we've seen in some corners of Star Wars before, is just because like we've seen it in the movies of the Republic are the good guys and the Empire are the bad guys. Doesn't mean everything is good and everything is bad, right?
I mean, these guys, the people that crashed on Kenari, they killed a girl.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not a good quality.
No, not the best.
It's actually pretty bad.
In the back.
Yeah, in the back.
Right.
So.
Where is that honor?
Wait, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's not very Republic of them.
Yeah. What would Piccolo say?
Oh, that's right, Piccolo. Oh, that's
What
right.
would he
Yeah,
say?
he won't power. Yeah, okay.
His pride.
Back to our last pod with Dragon Ball Super. Okay,
It's all connected.
I was like, what? What are you talking about?
It's about honor. It's about respect.
Speaking of respect, Andor uses his ex-girlfriend.
Well, we assume there's kind of like some vibes there.
So at first I thought. So I was super.
Yeah, I know what you're
confused
gonna
because
say here.
obviously Andor starts out with him in a brothel looking for
His sister,
who in the flashbacks we see with him on Kenari. We know they are separated when they were small children. And then we're back, then we're on this new planet. What is this new planet?
I wrote it down in the notes. Give us 1 sec.
Tatooine.
Oh,
No,
thank God. Yes, we haven't seen a desert planet yet.
Ferrex.
So they're on this planet, Ferrex. Yeah. And then he comes, in the first episode, then we see him talking to this new character. And I at first thought that new character was his sister, but that's not the case. Right. It's obviously some kind of love interest or friend. Or whatever.
His adoptive mother references, like, he sleeps around a little bit.
Yes, yes. She does say, as another, like, fling or whatever.
She basically calls him
all the women.
Wow.
All the women.
I mean, he is quite good looking, so it's his curse.
Are you in love
it's
with
his own
Cassian?
fault.
Well, actually, because I was going to ask you guys this, like, Cassian is an interesting character in the sense that he does very, very bad things.
Sure.
He does one thing that is a big sacrifice to help his thing, right? Or whatever. When you look at other characters who do not similar things, but they do like bad. Like, I was asked recently, are you a fan of the Scarlet Witch? Are you a fan of Bucky? In the sense that, they have done terrible things.
Sure.
Like, Bucky, I think you could argue is the closest. Because, like, what the Scarlet Witch does, we haven't seen her redemption or if she's even going to get redemption. While Bucky is trying to do redemption, Cassian's big thing is, the Death Star plans. But the question, though, is like, is Cassian a likable character?
I think they've added a lot of nuance to the character in terms of, and especially early in the show, I think what they're trying to show is just the circumstances around a lot of these people, right? And you are a product of your circumstances. And the circumstances are not great for any of these people. You kind of have to live fast and loose, and, you live in this very corrupt, kind of roguish type of world where you're, it's kind of the Wild Wild West in a lot of ways, in space cowboys,
the main premise of Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. This show, Christian said this show reminded him a lot of the expanded universe. This show reminds me of a lot of what Lucas had tried to do for years when he was trying to do his live action show called Underworld, which was the anthology series where it was just not like people far and away from the main stories, and it was just the people of the galaxy and like what they were living for, right? And a lot of that concept got turned into The Mandalorian, but it also feels like some of that lives within the show,
right?
Of this is what happens to all the other people. This isn't just the heroes of the rebellion and the villains of the Empire. This is kind of the nitty gritty and the people we forget about. And you kind of get into some of that nuance too with governments and how the empires run. And there's some lines of like, how did you get this? He's like, well, the Empire would never think that I could go in and get this box.
Yeah,
they just don't care. They're getting fat and greedy. Right, exactly.
How do you feel? I mean, so we're obviously introduced, like, that particular line comes at a point in the show when the corporation is on the planet.
The blue suits.
The blue
is what
suits.
the people of the planet call them.
So the blue suits are on there, and Skarsgård, right?
His character's name is Luthen.
Luthen. So Luthen, played by Papa Skarsgård, or Pennywise's father, or their Norseman's father. Wow, his family is just. They do a lot of stuff. They're everywhere. It's great. Yeah. It's great.
I'm not sure they're related.
They are.
Oh,
those are all his sons.
There are some Skarsgårds that are not,
family.
though.
But he has quite a few sons who are actors.
Okay. He has three. Yeah. He has three and sons who are like pretty big actors.
Yeah.
That's wild. Especially imagine Halloween must be really fun for them.
A lot of different characters will be dressed up as.
That's a family dinner that I would love to be a fly on the wall for. So Skarsgård shows up, or Luthen shows up, and takes obviously Cassian. Takes him off the planet.
Well, right. That's how the third episode ends.
Right. So he lands on the planet. What episode? Yeah, episode 3, right? Or episode 2?
Episode 2, end of episode 2 is when you see him kind of coming into play.
So his ship, though, is very Imperial looking, very...
Is it Cassian's ship from Rogue One?
No, it's not. I do not believe it's that ship.
Okay.
Yeah. His, this particular ship just looks like a weirded, like, TIE fighter, like on steroids kind of thing. But it does have like Imperial looking designs, which I think is interesting. So who do we think Luthen is?
Luthen? I think he must be something related to the rebellion, because like the line that really sticks out from episode 3 is like, don't you want to do more? Don't you want to make it hurt for them? Or something like something to that nature. It's not the exact line. But he's like, don't you want to make it hurt for them? Like he's clearly recruiting him for like rebellion type stuff. Might not be the full blown rebellion yet, but it's something like that, and I'm sure it's got to be connected to that in some way, shape, or form.
So the reason I bring up, I'm kind of just poking you all here to get to my insane theory.
Oh boy!
So
he's Darth Vader.
You know how we've always been presented with the idea that the rebels infiltrated the Empire. There are people that defected. There are people that are playing them or whatever. Why can't it be the other way? Why can't the Empire be putting out agents to figure out if there is a rebellion? And to the point of, like, we've seen it in our own, like, history where the governments have implanted or started uprisings or whatever for political gain. Like, why can't it be that that's what this character is? Like, his purpose is, like, not to necessarily start. He's basically there to find a rebellion, gather them all, and then just get rid of them.
I mean, that's a big part of the Rogue Squadron novels from the expanded universe. There's a lot of that. A couple Imperials infiltrate Rogue Squadron and then are feeding information back to the Empire. So again, that's a great point. I think that's it would be great to see the Empire crossing over, being stealthy and sneaky.
Are you saying that the rebellion was an inside job, that the first Death Star was done by the Empire?
I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, they were like, we want to make it better. Blow us one up.
I mean,
tax write-off
for the insurance money.
Tax write-off if the rebels do it, not us.
I mean, it's also interesting because we see another. Well, we know we are going to see more of the Empire at some point, I'm sure, right? Because there are other characters that we've seen in the trailers where we see the security type uniforms.
I mean, we see Mon Mothma in the trailer.
Yeah, we see Mon Mothma,
and
so
we know that she's a part of the Senate. Like we know that from the stuff. So like I'm sure we're going to see more of that, of like her interactions and kind of playing both sides. And yeah, it would be kind of foolish to think that they're the only ones with double agents.
Right.
Like, there's got to be double, triple, quadruple agents. Kind of reminds me of like Rise of Skywalker, Hux. Remember, like General Hux is the one that becomes
a spy.
And then in Rebels, there's what's his name? The Imperial officer.
Not Callus.
But we know who I'm talking about.
Fulcrum.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he does.
He becomes the second Fulcrum.
He does become the second Fulcrum.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, right. I mean, yeah, I think it's good to remember that this is an interesting time for the Empire because they're like pretty much brand new, and like any sort of government that's just starting up, they're facing their own challenges, right? So if you're looking at it from the Empire's perspective, they're young and not as secure in their power as they could be or they will be. Like they probably have vulnerabilities and holes that they're trying to patch up. Like, I mean, I guess the Empire is interesting because it's sort of like the Republic just reformed.
Yeah, I view it a little differently. I view it as like they're fat and greedy, and they're like the threat is over, and we can kind of
because
relax.
we're 12 years into them. Yeah.
And even I think you even get perspective of some characters who are like the blue suit's boss, right? He's like, just sweep it under the rug. We don't need to do anything.
Care.
We don't need to do anything about this. We don't care. But then you have other characters who are very gung ho and like, no,
Cyril,
we do
right?
need to do. Right? Cyril's like, full-blown investigation. Like, we're gonna do the
Full-blown investigation, really bad speech, and then they really fucked it up.
And then he cowers and he's like 12, 14. Ah!
Yeah, he's such an interesting villain because
I don't know if he's
insecure.
I don't know if he's being set up as a villain. I wonder if he's just being set up
he's
as like,
he's our antagonist for these first 3 episodes, right?
Sure.
Like, so he might not be the villain, but he's still our protagonist antagonist.
Yeah.
So
but
he's our obstacle.
Yeah, I do wonder if he's kind of like the opposite of Cassian in a way, like the potentially kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. Like this is the guy that will not go up in the Empire. Like this is the guy that's going to go up in the rebellion, essentially, and this is their origin stories.
That would be fascinating because I mean, yeah, episode three by far out of the first episode is my favorite, specifically the ending. Like it was a really good compilation sequence of like all of these characters that you were just introduced to. Like you actually kind of give a fuck.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh wow, okay. Only spent 3 hours with you guys, but
it's not 3 hours.
It was like two and a half.
No, it's an hour and a half.
Is it?
Yeah, each episode is between
minutes.
30 and 40 minutes.
So an hour 45. Split the difference.
No, because you have to remember the 10 minutes of credits.
Yeah, and I sit there and I watch them all and I read.
That's a you problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only
but I do think that's why they released these first 3 episodes together, because it almost feels essential to watch them together. Like it is telling you this arc of here's Cassian, here's where he is, here are the major players, and then they're leaving. Like they get away essentially, and are going to, leave the planet and go on and do their thing.
Do you think that if they had spread them out and you had 3 weeks of actual time to like let them live in your head, would you feel more about the ending of the 3rd episode, whatever that is? I didn't.
No, I think it would have been tougher. I think people would have just felt like the show was slow,
very slow.
They weren't really sure where the show was going. I think like watching the 3 episodes together, you have the roadmap of like, this is what the show is. These are the major players, and I can kind of see where the show is going now a little bit.
Yeah, if they had released it week to week, the characters would have faded.
Yeah,
and by the next week, like they wouldn't be as strong in my mind, and that's just a sheer fact that there's just being so much other stuff that we're watching, right? Like it would be, it's good that they released these 3 together.
I think also because it is an ensemble cast, like a 30 to 40 minutes per week, like Christian said, you only get a scene or 2 of some of these characters, so you're like, wait, who is that again? Like I can't remember exactly, and whatnot. When I think watching these together kind of helps you
solidify those guys. Yeah,
this is this is person, this is that,
and we're still having trouble remembering some of their names. So.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be even
worse.
why
can't they have simple names like Luke and Leia and Han?
I mean, the robot's nickname is B.
Well, actually, though, so the robot obviously is Star Wars, so a new cute droid has to be introduced. So
Top 3 droid now, easily.
Easily? Wow. Anyway, but its full name is
B2S.
It's B2 Emo.
B2 Emo.
Stop
no
being
way.
emo. Yes, B2 EMO. B2 Emo.
That droid is
sad.
emo,
and he's a sad droid.
He's a great.
He
droid.
is.
Yeah.
He's great.
I like his design though. It's
Photoshop
it's
emo
cute.
hair on it.
I mean, watching this show, because obviously Cassian dies, you're like, do all these other characters die before he does?
So, I mean, do you want to get into your insane predictions, or is that too early yet?
That's, you know. Well, I mean,
we could jump in.
let me.
yeah, we're still talking about the show.
Sure, but
Still
let me throw out my bold prediction because it hit me when I was watching Rogue One in theaters. And it is very simple. Cassian doesn't die on the beaches of Scarif. And the reason I'm throwing this out there, and again, this is bold prediction, right? It's supposed to be bold. Is that this show in its 2 seasons, which, 5 years before, and then I believe the second season will go directly or closely into Rogue One. I believe we've already seen a character who is going to be important in Cassian's life and will somehow, I don't know how, I don't know the specific, will somehow be on Scarif at the right moment, at the right time, and be able to save Cassian. Maybe Jin. Don't know.
Who is this character?
No idea.
No, but it saves him.
I have no idea.
One of these characters.
It could be Skarsgård. It could be
It's B.
It could be B2EMO. Like it could be any of them.
I'm really worried about B because obviously he has K2SO in Rogue One, and so it's like, why doesn't he have B with him?
Why it could be that B2EMO takes over K2SO or liberates him or something.
But
and also, doesn't B2EMO technically belong to Marva?
Yes.
So
yeah,
But he's loyal to Cassian.
It's true. But that's because Marva is loyal to Cassian.
He's seen the lad grow up.
The lad.
The lad. That's an interesting bold prediction. My bold prediction is I think the Empire will lose to the Rebellion.
Well, you know what?
I'm just getting shades of that.
Christian's bold prediction is Cassian is Sauron.
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, no, we're not going to divert right now. Bold predictions. I mean, it's interesting because Alan Tudyk is been cast in this show, and it says right on the IMDb he is K2SO, so we know we're getting K2SO.
Well, there are some reports because that was the initial announcement years ago, but we don't know.
It says it right here.
Yeah, the last
says it right here.
The last interview. IMDb is notoriously false sometimes.
Well, this is on Google.
You just said it was IMDb.
Accurate.
Make your mind up.
Yeah, Christian clearly doesn't know how to.
No,
cite his
Chris is actually on a Wikipedia page that he just wrote.
And I think the last interview Alan Tudyk did was he wasn't going to be in this first season at least, so he might be closer to like season 2, especially if that's closer to Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
So he might not be in this first season at all.
I think he will be. That's my bold prediction then. He will be. And the reason he said that was he's pulling a Vision or, Paul Bettany, just misdirection everywhere. But he's going to show up as a killing machine Terminator. So he's going to be teamed up with Cyril. I think he'll be Cyril's droid, and they'll be hunting Cassian all over the galaxy. And they'll be enemies before they become friends.
Yeah. I kind of like that. Actually, that makes sense. Like, especially if, let's say Cyril does rise up in the ranks of the rebellion. Yeah, it would be kind of interesting. He goes because Cyril is clearly mad at Cassian at the end of this, or at the very least, he's pinpointing everything.
Slightly peeved off.
Yeah, just a little bit pissed.
Yeah.
Even though it's all Cyril's fault, and Cyril just can't take orders.
Stupid Cyril.
Yeah, dumb Cyril. The corporation.
Cyril. The corporation!
June, do you have a bold prediction that could top either one of these already fantastic predictions?
We will get a Star Wars movie. No, my bold prediction is going to be we won't see any Jedi or Force users in this show.
At all.
Zilch.
Zero. We'll get the first live-action Star Wars thing without a lightsaber showing up, a Force user, anything.
Nothing.
I think the closest...
Will we get a mention?
I think we'll get some type of mention to it for probably, but my guess is we won't see it at all.
I have a question. My hand is raised, sir.
Go ahead.
What about this little thing called Hayden Christensen and Darth Vader?
What's his contract?
I don't know what his contract is.
I don't think we'll see him in this.
You don't think we'll see a Vader? Or
No.
How many appearances is he scheduled for?
No. Because
that's actually pretty bold.
The reason I say that is because the creators of the show have obviously been doing a lot of press and talking about the show, and they specifically talked about how they wanted to make this show just like its own thing, and that their edict wasn't like stuff in a bunch of Easter eggs or like do this, this, and this. In fact, it seemed like the edict was to not do that. Was like, you don't have to do any of this stuff. And I just, the way I see this story going, unless it was fan service, unless it was like, let's stuff in, like, we need this type of thing, let's go with that. Let's go with, Jedi showing up. And the only one that makes sense, like you said, is Darth Vader. And this just seems so low level in terms of like what we're dealing with in terms of with the Empire.
Can we add on to your
that I can't see them.
Yeah, I feel like there's an addendum here.
Well, I think also I guess the other question there was like I can see that, but then what about all the other characters that we know are like, so we know at the period that we're in with the first season of Andor, we know that the Ghost, we know that an Ezra, we know that a Kanan, an Ahsoka, we know that these characters are running around and they're doing their thing. We know that there's a Thrawn out there doing his thing.
Well, he's not a Force user.
I know he's not a Force user, but I'm talking like other well-established characters. Do you think they're going to show up? Or
I don't think any
completely new cast?
I think this is just going to be completely its own thing. I don't think it's going to be connected to any other stuff.
Ahsoka.
I mean, it's easy. I think you could easily connect it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think from the way that the creators have talked about, and very easily they could be
misdirection
and misdirection.
Yeah. Yep.
But from what I've seen with these first 3 episodes, I think this is going to be its complete own thing. Like they're doing their own Star Wars story.
It would be super refreshing if like that actually happens. Yeah. And I mean, again, after the first episode, I was very happy that I did not see a stormtrooper. I did not see any class of starship that I recognized. There was mention of an Empire, but it was this thing that you just didn't see, which was creepier, right? It's always creepier when you don't see the horrifying thing as opposed to when it's shown in your face all the time. So I think that would be amazing. And the planets that we've seen and the things that have been mentioned, they're not well-established locations in Rebels or stuff around Ahsoka or anything of that nature. Now, we do know, though, we are going to be on Coruscant at some point because the trailers do show the Senate room and everything.
I am the Senate.
Unless those are flashbacks or flash forwards or whatnot. So
Flash sideways.
Or flash
Shout
sideways.
out to Lost.
Wait, I'm sorry, is that an actual thing in Lost? Flash sideways?
Isn't that the whole thing with the final season? Like
I didn't watch. I
What do you
stopped
mean?
after episode season 3.
Is this a spoiler?
Probably.
No, I don't think that they flash sideways in that. I don't know.
What does flash sideways mean?
Don't they have like that alternate timeline where like the plane didn't crash? And I think the creators
Spoilers. I might go watch it.
It's an old show. It's too late.
I that's not a thing.
And they called it Flash Sideways because it was like parallel to the story, but not exactly so.
Mm. But you don't think that Vader will be about to take out Andor and then Ahsoka will come in and save him and he'll get away while they have a climactic battle in the background and we don't know what happens?
Nah.
You don't think Darth Maul's going to show up?
No.
I'm trying to think of what other obscure characters. So you don't. Oh,
Cal Kestis.
Cal Kestis, Bail Organa.
Bail Organa could show up. Again, I said Force users.
Wedge Antilles.
Actually, the Ferrex reminded me so much of what's the video game with Cal Kestis?
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order, yeah, Jedi Fallen Order. Like that, where he starts, right on that like.
Yeah, they are a planet where they're deconstructing. Ships and everything.
I thought for a second, like in the first episode, before I really knew where we were, I was like, oh, this is the same kind of
like a
place.
junker planet.
Maybe we will see Cal Kestis.
No Inquisitors?
It's not, so.
Nope.
Whoa.
Inquisitors hunt down Force users.
That's right. So then
there's no
but
Force
little
users.
do you know, Andor Cassian, or Cassian Andor is a Force user and a Jedi.
How would you feel if... I can't believe we got to ask this. How would you feel if, for some reason, there's like they get to some crossroad or something happens and they need help, and Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up out of the blue.
I think I would laugh.
I think I would
just to help them out.
Just stop watching the show weekly at that point.
Really?
Just
You'd
wait
be
for
like,
it to
done?
be done. I would just wait for it to be done and be like, I'm just gonna binge this. I can't do it
this.
anymore.
Yeah, yes, I could see that. Well, that kind of gets us into our our other section here, qualifiers. Like, what is going to make you either say I can't stand this, or yes, this was the greatest thing ever? Like, what is the qualifier? Is yours the Force user stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Even though it's my bold prediction, I could see it work. Like, I could see them making it work within the story.
Right.
I think if it is just kind of like, if it becomes too much of that, if like we get to an episode where it's just like Ahsoka and Obi-Wan and Yoda and everyone just shows up for some reason, I think that would be like my big qualifier of like,
so overusage of
yeah,
Jedi.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. I can agree. Okay, I think that works.
For me, as long as Tatooine isn't seen, mentioned, or thought about, the show will be probably a success.
Wait, why only probably? Like, what do you think would happen to cause it to fail?
I don't know. A lot of things could
Wait,
happen
does this
to make it
include
fail,
any
to be
desert
honest.
type of planet? Like, what's the planet that...
What if they go to Jakku?
Jakku.
Or what's the planet that Saw dies on in Rogue One?
Jeddah.
Oh, yeah.
Jeddah, yeah. Like,
it's
what
not
if
a Jeddah,
Jeddah
it's
shows
Jeddah,
up?
Yeah.
Well, Saw Gerrera is in it.
Yes, we do know that.
Yeah.
You know Saw Gerrera is in it, so we could end up on Jeddah. That's
dear.
more likely
But it's
than
not. It's not Tatooine though. As long
Yeah,
as
but
not
it's still
Tatooine.
a desert planet.
No, it's okay. It's okay. As long as it's not freaking Tatooine, I'll live.
Actually,
with
I do have a question.
anything else.
And this is something, Ravi, you might know as you just recently watched it. When they're all there and they're with Saw, does Cassian know Saw?
Yes.
They
Everyone. So it's not that Cassian is like, oh, hey, Saw, what's up? How are the kids? It's more of we know who Saw is. Right. We know what he's about. Because remember, in Rogue One, when they capture Jyn, the whole reason they go and find Jyn and bring her, in front of Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and all of them, is because they know of her connection to Saw.
Right.
And they know that Saw has the pilot. So, by the way, Rogue One, the first half is very much do the quest to get to the next quest.
Star Wars has always been a fetch quest, if you really
basically. Yeah. But yeah, they're aware of Saw and what he's about. So, because remember, Saw is really the whole reason, I would argue, Saw is the main reason there is a rebellion. Because he kind of did it first. Yeah, he did it the wrong way. But he's the one that kind of started it.
And who created Saw?
Anakin and Ahsoka. So.
Oh, so Ahsoka's evil.
I mean,
sorry. No.
Yes, she is. Yes,
she's actually the big bad for the fourth trilogy of movies, 10 through 12. That's what Ahsoka's setting up.
That would be. I mean, that'd be cool.
She's going to fuse with Thrawn and become Thronoka.
That's actually a cool name.
Ashawn.
That's an okay name. My qualifier, I think, has to be
Saw Gerrera saying, "Jyn, what have you become?"
No, I think the big one is it needs to, the rest of the show has to do, I think, something incredibly difficult, which is it needs to maintain what they've started in these first 3 episodes, which is we are not a Star Wars story.
Oh.
And what I mean by that is, like, I don't need to see stormtroopers in every other scene. I don't need to see Jedi. I don't need to see Sith. I don't need to hear of the stupid Emperor. Like, focus on these new characters and maybe a little bit focus on these new characters and other new characters that are introduced, but do not like throw in, oh, did you hear about that guy on Kessel who did the run with the Falcon? Like, I don't need to hear that fucking story or hear any mention of that. I don't need to see Maul. I don't need to know about the underworld again. Like, focus just on this and keep it there. If we get to the mid-season, because this is 12 episodes, so around episode 6, 7, or whatever, or 5 or 6, if there is like a big big thing at the end of the episode where it's like clearly a well-known character, I think at that point I may just be like, okay, this is not a good show because it needs to be able to stand on its own without other characters.
Yeah, like a baby.
Yes, actually.
Baby needs to be able to stand on its own 2 feet without the aid of its parents or guardians.
Wow. It kind of works, actually, so props to you.
You're calling Andor a baby.
Yes. Andor is a baby, and it needs to stand on its own.
Also, you think babies need to stand on their own?
At some point.
Yeah.
I mean,
To graduate from being a baby.
I mean,
Right. Then they become toddlers.
And they graduate to being a toddler.
I mean, I guess I wonder if Andor's people on Curian, like, if that's how they work, right? Because there's no parents around.
True.
No, that's
Clearly.
true.
Oh, it's
Ravi, I thought when you said Andor needs to do something that's really hard to do, and that's not suck. I thought that's what you were going to say. I really did.
I
Because no
mean-
Star Wars show has been able to do it yet.
Well,
Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah. Mandalorian.
I think
is
Christian's
the
talking
exception.
about this year.
Yeah, this year. Book of Boba, not good.
Oh.
Obi-Wan.
I mean, Book of Boba is like the clear standard of a show that could not stand on its own. They
Literally
knew-
needed to have
they
Mando
knew,
episode.
They knew for like going. They knew that they couldn't stand on their own, and they had the entire thing prepped and ready to go. I think the show can. I just hope.
It
And
does.
the thing that sucks is like this is not a like Disney Plus shows are not done like traditional TV,
Right.
where it's like do the first half of the season, take a little break, figure out what your audience liked and didn't like, and then finish the season.
Well, they're doing it week to week, right? It's like
right, but
yeah.
the majority, like it's already been shot, it's already been
it's
written.
all written at once
Yeah,
and shot
yeah.
at
There's
once.
a couple of things that you can tweak here and there, sure, but for the most part, it's a done deal. So one would hope that they going into it, because this show has been worked on for 2-3 years or something.
Quite a while.
Yeah, because COVID shut everything down and they started back up.
A couple different showrunners, I believe, in there as well.
So one really hopes that they were, when they were looking at it holistically, they were like,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't need to show Grogu in this show.
Well, here's my
Challenge
new qualifier.
accepted.
No, I'm just joking.
If Grogu doesn't show up, I swear to God.
Grogu doesn't show up and is the main character for episodes 5 and 6.
What if you see a digitized Leia?
No. No.
Just why?
She's 12 at this
Why?
point.
Have they
Yep, 12.
brought in somebody like they did with Boba with Mandalorian towards the end of every Disney Plus so far? Did they do anything like that with Obi-Wan?
No, there wasn't like a big character reveal. I mean, Vader was
you would
there
argue
from
you
the
could
middle.
argue you could argue that Reva's change of heart was the big switcheroo or big addition to the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, they
So.
just did it
Do it
really
well.
poorly.
Yes, very poorly.
Yeah,
But like
Bad writing.
it won't necessarily turn into Obi-Wan show for 2 episodes like Boba turned into Mandalorian
no,
for 2
but
episodes.
you know what? For this type of show,
You never know.
it could turn into like focusing on one of these other characters within his orbit. I could see that, but I just couldn't see like an outside character.
Yeah,
Necessarily
I don't think that will happen. But again, I do think, you know, if they're writing this and like we need to spice it up, or like they feel that they got to a point in production and they were like, the character of Cassian is just not sticking. We need something to
Maybe to
boost
Christian's
the
point,
orbit.
it's like there's a K2SO episode where
Right.
it's just like all his perspective and just catches us up and like
Yeah.
to him meeting Cassian or something, which I guess would be the equivalent, somewhat equivalent of like it changes it into a slightly different show.
True.
Not as I think Jurassic is
Boba.
Mando and Boba just taking over for 2 episodes. And everyone being like, why didn't we just get Mando season 3 instead?
Because we got
And then everyone else probably being like, yeah,
Yeah.
probably a better idea.
It really
Well-
the Book of Boba stuff. I don't know. I mean, which one do you guys find more? I don't want to say which one's worse. I would rather say like which one did you find more disappointing, Book of Boba or the Obi-Wan Kenobi show?
Book of Boba, I think, for me. Obi-Wan, I still think at least started off well. And,
It's true. It did start really well.
And I still think there's more redeeming qualities in that show than there is in Book of Boba.
Mm-hmm.
Book of Boba, I think, to me, was just like potentially a disaster from the start because it feels like they did it because they knew Mando season 3 wasn't going to come out in the same time slot. They're like, we need to do a show. Let's do this Boba Fett show, which is the show we originally wanted to do. But wait, he can't be Boba Fett anymore because Mando is Boba Fett now. So we're going to do something completely different. And it just seemed like no one was on the same page for that show ever. And it's just like, we're going to do, it's like there was like 10 ideas and like, let's do them all, right? Bad leadership when the leader's like, do all the ideas. And then they did all the ideas and you kind of had this mess with Book of Boba.
That's pretty on point. Christian, what about you?
I think Kenobi is more disappointing for me because I just had higher expectations for it. I actually agree with everything Arjuna said, but my expectations were a lot higher for Kenobi, and I wanted it to be better than it was, and it wasn't. So the disappointment hit harder. For Book of Boba, I think by episode 2, I knew it was going to be a train wreck. You kind of got like. I had bad vibes going into it, I was like, I don't know about this. So I wasn't shocked or surprised by Book of Boba being bad. But but Book of Boba was worse. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed Kenobi wasn't good, and I still enjoyed it so much more than Book of Boba. That's how bad Book of Boba was.
What's interesting too is like I think they're both equally, honestly, as bad for one reason or another. Like they just, I would not rewatch any of them. Or either of them ever again. And I think also partially it's also just the visuals too. Because they use the volume for both of those shows heavily, like majority of it is shot on that volume, it just does not look or feel good. Like it just feels very empty and hollow, while Andor is practical. It's real sets that they actually built out, and it looks so much better than either of those shows.
Do you think if Andor has like a really positive reception, does banana numbers, it's like far. I mean, obviously, Book of Boba and Obi-Wan did great numbers.
Right.
Disney Plus, right? Critical response, fan response, probably not great. But the numbers are still very high.
Yeah.
If this one like somehow blows it out of the water, also gets like the critical accolades. Like, let's say it's similar to like the Mando path, for example.
Yep.
Do you think Lucasfilm then pivots and is like, let's keep Mando on volume because clearly they've figured out how to make it work.
It works, yep.
Everything else has to be like practical again because that's what
I think.
We need to do.
I think we're in the this year in particular is the try everything and see what sticks here. So I think yes, there is somebody looking at the numbers and how these shows are being created, and it will kind of determine what do we do, because the thing is like, and again, I don't want to say this because I don't want to jinx myself. The show has started very, very strong. It looks great. It, story-wise is very compelling. The characters are actually interesting. You kind of give a flying fuck about them. While Boba, Obi, just very hollow and empty. But the thing, though, is like cost-wise, and I don't know the costs of any of these shows. I'm sure we could find it easily. I would imagine
high.
The volume is a significantly cheaper show to make, like for Book of Boba, for Obi. While this show is definitely more. I know a lot of like prop and costume designers were very critical of Book of Boba as well because the costumes just look cheaper.
Right.
So I think it's also that, like, I think at the end of the day somebody's going to look at it and be like, yeah, you spend money, you get good quality.
Well, that's the thing with all these streaming services, right? None of them have turned a profit yet. They're all working in negative because a lot these companies, their philosophy has been, we got to wait a few years until we can build up subscriptions and everything. But at some point, the bill has to come due, and they're going to be like, where do we make cuts?
Yep.
And everything. And we're in the sprint phase right now where we have all this content coming out and everything. But at some point, it pulls back and changes. So it'll be kind of fascinating to see on the Disney Plus side with like Star Wars and Marvel where those cuts are made.
I mean, Marvel shows, I would argue, are easier to make for the simple reason that they take place primarily on Earth, right?
Yeah, all of the Disney Plus ones so far,
yeah. So it's easier to make because you have practical effects galore everywhere. That's traditional filmmaking. While Star Wars, because it takes place in a galaxy far, far away, there's an added cost, right?
Right.
I do hope that the decision's not made where it's like everything must be volume because we don't really care about the stories and quality. We just need content, right? Like, fill the Disney Plus content library with as much crap as humanly possible. So, We'll see. I mean, does anyone know, is Ahsoka being shot volume or practical, or?
Actually, I have no idea.
I'd be curious to see how that's going to be shot. So.
Skeleton Crew will be the most expensive Disney Plus Star Wars show ever made.
And that's because Jude Law's bill.
They have to pay Jude Law $100 million to do it.
I bet.
Jude Law's like, I'll do it. $100 million. They're like,
okay.
All right.
Cool. And Jude Law's like, because we don't know who Jude Law's playing, right?
I think D23, it was confirmed he is not playing Thrawn.
Well, now I'm not interested. My interest level for that show just dropped.
The character name came out from people that were there, and I forget what the name was, but it was decidedly not Thrawn.
Oh, really? I thought it was confirmed he was Thrawn.
No, that was just speculation on our part and many others, but not the case, apparently.
He seems like he would be a great Thrawn.
Unless, again, maybe it's another misdirection. Who knows?
Yeah. He'd be fantastic as Thrawn. He even looks like Thrawn. Kind of
blue,
Weasley.
I hate to be that person, Christian, but no, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, let's get into that final question, and then I will tell Christian my thought off air.
No, say it now.
No, I'm not going to say it.
Say it.
No. Arjuna. Was Andor episode 1, 2, and 3 good?
Yes, it was good. I enjoyed it. I think like all of these other Star Wars shows, we're starting off strong. And
no, Book of Boba did not start off strong.
I think we all said yes for the first episode, just to point that out.
Then we're idiots.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. Yeah. But hopefully, we got to see how the show kind of rides. This is the Disney. This is not just a Star Wars problem. This is a whole Disney Plus thing.
Oh, big time! Yeah.
All these shows seem to start off strong and then kind of peter out, and I hope that's not the case for this one because I really like this one. Krishna, was Andor episodes 1, 2, and 3 good?
It was good. I like that they are more adult. The show seems to be more adult. It seems like something right out of the expanded universe novels. And I'm curious to see where it goes. And, we know where it goes. It ends with culmination in Rogue One. But still, where this particular story goes. Ravi, was the first 3 episodes of Andor good?
It was good. It was very enjoyable. It did not feel like Star Wars. I do hope that us saying the first 3 were good doesn't somehow curse the rest of the series.
Maybe we're the curse.
It's doomed. It's doomed. We've doomed it.
I really do hope it kind of ends solid and it's a good story, and we continue with these interesting characters. The one thing I will say is, I agree with Arjuna. If this had dropped week to week, I don't know if I would be saying yes, honestly. Because thinking back to just episode 1, it definitely is. It starts really, really strong, that episode, the first one, and then it ends kind of like poorly. You're not entirely sure where you're going, what's happening, or anything of that nature. And I'm just speaking out loud here. That in itself, that's where I would have a little bit of concern, is if the episodes aren't good on their own and they need to be kind of bulked together, you could potentially lose individuals, lose fans, and all that stuff. So
and just be bad.
Yeah. So well, I'm hoping that that's not the case, and it's good. So what's interesting there is this show won't wrap until end of October, I believe, maybe even November if I can do math, because there's.
I think it's November.
Yeah, because this is
I think it's late November.
Yeah, because it's an 11-week run.
No, it's a 10-week run.
10-week. Why would it be 10 weeks?
Because there's 3 episodes.
Oh, yeah. Math is hard.
I have a quick hypothetical, just real quick. If these services, so Apple, Netflix, and all the other streaming services, start offering premium packages that lets you get a whole show at once, whereas the regular price is week to week, would you consider playing the premium to get every show as a bingeable thing?
Video games have done that for a long time with microtransactions, and I never participated in those because it felt like a waste. You could upgrade and buy this armor, or you could grind and get it or whatnot. I think I would just leave and wait. I don't need to know. I've not come across a show that's made me sit there and go, I need to know. Maybe the first season of Mandalorian, where it's like the mystery around Grogu was very compelling. Second season, I could wait week to week. But there's not been a show that has come out where I'm like, I need to know what's going to happen next.
Rings of Power.
Rings of. I still haven't even watched episode 4. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, and I'm fine just waiting until I'll probably wait till episode 5 and then back to back. But like, even Rings of Power is not to me anyway a show where I'm like, I have to know everything. Like
that's appointment television for me right now.
That one,
Rings, yeah.
My only one that I consistently check in on every week and laugh if you will is Star Trek Lower Decks. Anyway, with that, that's going to do it for us here on Was It Good. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Was It Good, on Instagram and TikTok at Was It Good Pod. Specifically on the TikTok and the Instagram, please take a look and let me know if I'm doing a good job, because I need validation. Also, check our full episodes out on youtube.com/wasgood. Our next pod will be later this week. Follow along on the socials to know what we're talking about, because as of right now, we have no idea. Goodbye.